Hello and welcome to Fan OCC episode 9, where I take an original creature concept and recreate it using my own techniques. Today's concept is coming from Christof Grobelski, an artist from Germany, and it is called Orc Head Sketch. And I shall leave links below to his social medias where you can go check out his amazing artwork in your own time. He's a very talented artist and I'm sure his artwork will inspire you just like me. Before we jump into ZBrush, please like, share and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and I'd like to thank everyone who has. And with that, let's jump straight into ZBrush. So inside ZBrush, we start off with the head plane that comes with ZBrush. And it's a good tool to use if you just want to get stuck into sculpting and you don't want to have to worry about making those key features. It comes free with ZBrush as well. So I'm going to run through this faster than normal because we've already seen these types of approaches that I do in previous videos. And if you haven't, please go and check those ones out as well. But essentially what I'm doing is I'm just using the basic brushes as I usually do. The clay build-up brush, the move brush, the dam standard, some smooth, not a lot, just a little, and the standard brush to get the silhouette looking correct. Now I like a very fast approach when I'm doing these sort of concepts. I like to move as fast as possible all around my model, and I don't tend to dive into the details in this blockout stage. I tend to try and just keep the model moving, keep flowing around the model as much as possible, and essentially just trying to keep it loose as much as possible as well. So just focusing on getting some of those massive shapes in before blocking in those massive shapes, and then going in with a finer brush and building on those blocked out shapes that I already created in those bigger areas. Just trying to work around. Now with the concept, it's unfortunate that I only have one sort of view of this concept, so it's kind of difficult to gauge how the character is going to look on the other side of the face, but sometimes you are, as a concept artist or as a 3D artist, you're going to be given just one view, and you'll have to adapt to that and just try and make up as best as you can and follow some basic anatomy sculpting as well. And at this stage, you don't really want to worry too much about the finer details. You just want to get in and have some fun and sculpt, try out different things, try out different positions on the model, some different techniques and sculpting with the model as well, and don't worry too much about the final result. So today's concept is coming from a Christof Grobelski, and it's called Orc Head Sketch. And if you go to his ArtStation or his other Instagram account, you can find out the kind of work he does. He's kind of a mixed medium, so he does traditional as well as digital artwork, and he tries to recreate the artwork from his traditional style to his digital style, and I find it really amazing. If you can, please go check out his ArtStation and have a look at the different types of work that he has on there as well. So as you can see, I'm still very much blocking in with the clay build-up brush, trying to figure out how the ear is going to work, and then moving on to adding some extra parts. So the teeth now, I found that it was looking a bit weird without any teeth and just this massive gap. So in order to make sure that the teeth fit right and the mouth shape is correct, I appended a cube and started to manipulate it to a teeth design, and then also adding in those massive tusks as well. So as you can see in the concept, one of them is broken off, and I just sort of made one, then duplicated it and extended it so that it was longer and sharper at one end, and that's pretty much how it did the tusks for this concept. So you might be wondering why I picked this particular concept to create a model from and render, and there's two reasons for picking this one. The first is I really loved the design of it and the overall look of the concept, as well as it being an original creature concept, which is what these videos are meant for, as well as orcs have always been a fascination in different mediums that they come in. There's always a way to depict them in different ways, and I just really enjoy seeing them on the screen or in games, and different variations of them as well. So for example, you have the Lord of the Rings Tolkien orcs, which was adapted by Peter Jackson, the producer and director, for his 2001 to 2003 films, where they were mostly prosthesis and real actors with sort of humanistic looking designs, but also with a hint of fantasy in them as well. They were very much like real humans, live action orcs, and that kind of reminded me of this one that we're doing today in the concept. And then of course you got the Warhammer 40k orcs, which is spelled O-R-K and not O-R-C, and they are the toughest, meanest fighters in a universe of unending war, apparently. They are massive, they can come in various shapes and sizes. The bigger they are, the more deadly they are, and the more, in charge, I guess, they are of the orc clans. They have a massive backstory within the Warhammer 40k universe, and it's very interesting to read and to find out how they became a species and how they survive in an unending war of the universes. And then finally you've got Warcraft, not World of Warcraft, but Warcraft the film from Blizzard Entertainment, and that was in the 2016. And that was like the first time we sort of saw how an orc could be or could look from this fantastical world of Warcraft. And they are big. I mean, they are massive, and it's kind of weird trying to watch them in the film, because you wouldn't think that humans would be able to kill them because they're so big. But yeah, it's very much a fantasy type character, and they're very similar to the orcs of Warhammer, but they're not at the same time. They're a bit more intelligent, I guess, than the ones from the Warhammer 40k universe. They were massive when they first came out in 2016, and the technology that they used to create them has just opened up bigger possibilities in the VFX world and the film industry. So yeah, those were amazing to see. I mean, the smallest details were just unbelievable. So now that the teeth are in, I've just gone in and I'm working on the ear a little bit, adding some details, landmarks for later on. Still keeping it very loose with the sculpting, not dedicating myself to anything really. The more you work on your model, or the longer you work on your model, the more benefits you'll get out of it. So I'm now going in with the clay buildup, but I'm not doing massive big strokes. I'm doing very fine strokes. Still using the move brush as well to move certain areas around of the face, trying to make it make sense. Right now the sculpt is actually symmetrical, and that's great because you want to work in symmetry as much as possible until you cannot go any further, and you are forced to go as asymmetrical. Because once you start doing asymmetry, then you've got to do sculpting on one side and then sculpting on the other side, and it takes a lot longer to do that, rather than getting as much as you can done in symmetry mode, and then eventually, once you're happy with it, going into asymmetry. And the final item that I added onto the model was the massive horn that was coming out the back of his head. So I wasn't quite sure actually from the concept if this was supposed to be two horns, one on either side, but then that would make it more of a demon than it would an orc. I guess it was just the concept artist's choice to give him just maybe one horn that sort of sits on the back of his head like that instead. So that's what I went with. I just created a cylinder and then manipulated it so that it was twisted, and then using the Dynamesh, I then Dynameshed it and just started to sculpt some detail into it. Just like I'm doing now with the tusks, I'm trying to add some more detail into them so they're not just plain primitives, So using Dynamesh and then going in with the trim dynamic and the clay buildup, and also the H polish tool sometimes. Just going in and just sharpening those tusks up a little bit and making a bit more detail on them. Now I'm going to continually go back to the face and just constantly try to work my way around how this face is going to look from all angles. It's quite easy when you have one angle as a concept artist, but when you're actually making a 3D model, it has to make sense within the realm of 3D. So it's not going to be perfectly like the concept, but it'll be, I would say, about 95% as good as the concept, because when you're working on 2D, you're working on a flat, so you don't have to worry about what's around the other side of the character. So you can see now I'm just adding a little bit more detail with the dam standard, cutting into the model, and then tweaking using the move brush, using the clay buildup. Still very, very gently using the clay buildup because I don't want to, break up or destroy the detail that I already have. And that's one thing that normally happens when you use the smooth brush in particular. You'll find that you'll smooth away the detail that you might get accidentally through using the clay buildup brush. So now I'm just using the trim dynamic, trim adaptive, as well as the H polish to give a more interesting area at the bottom. I wanted to make it look like it was coming out of a rock because I wasn't working on the whole chest and the whole body, so I had to stop it somewhere, and I thought I'd just make it a little bit more interesting, make it look like it was carved out of rock at the bottom, in case someone wanted to, or the artist wanted to 3D print it. It would have a nice interesting looking bust to print. And now you can see I'm using the move brush in asymmetry, so I'm actually going to go now in and start doing the detailing part. So once I decided how far I got with the blockout, I then started to use the move brush in asymmetry and change it so it wasn't symmetrical on both sides. And then I'll go in with the dam standard and start adding more wrinkles using the standard brush as well. And then continue that around the whole face and making sure to pick up more of the detail around those wrinkle areas. And very shortly, I'm going to start to think about how I want the skin to look. And that's when I start to introduce alpha maps and textures to the model. And that will just give that impression of skin feel to the character, instead of just being really smooth. So at least the light will be able to bounce off it more interestingly when it comes to rendering as well. And you can see here I'm just using the dam standard to do some extra wrinkles, cutscenes. Now normally when you get to this stage and you have a really clean model, it's difficult to understand how the wrinkles are going to work on your character. So what I like to do is put down some basic wrinkles where I'd know that there would be wrinkle areas. So that's around the eyeballs, or the eyelids, sorry, the forehead, the lips, and the chin. And then anything else, I will actually use a skin alpha to add some detail to the model. And then once I've done with that, I will go back in and I will detail those skin areas where I put the alphas down. So it gives me a base to work on when it comes to skin texture. You'll be able to see that in a minute where I pop in and I start using the alpha maps. And this is perfectly fine to do if you're doing a concept or you're doing a personal project and you just want to add some very quick detail. If you're doing this for film or for game, then you take a bit more care in how you place these alpha maps, because it's going to be seen from afar, from a close, so you want to take a bit more care in it. But right now, as you can tell, I'm just going in with the basic alphas, skin alphas that I found online. And I'm just plastering it in particular areas of interest. And then once I've done with that, I'll go over those same areas and use them as a guide to help me put extra detail into those wrinkles. So you can see I'm using a standard brush and I'm going along where I've added those wrinkles with alpha map. I'm just enhancing a few of them a little bit just to give it a bit more interest to the character. And then basically it's just a rinse and repeat with the horns, the tusks and the teeth, using alphas to lay down some basic shape, basic textures, and then going over with them with a standard brush, damn standard as well, and making sure to make it look interesting from all angles. Again, all these alphas I found online, and they're mostly wrinkle maps, but there are a couple of tree maps as well that I found, and they just give that interesting texture to the model. And you can see I'm using damn standard, a trim dynamic as well, and I'm just going to do the same thing with this last tusk as well as the teeth. And then after that, there's just one or two things that I did extra. So I added some pimples on the face because it's an orc. It's going to have some grotesque warts or pimples all over his face. And as well as that, I used some vein alphas to add some temple veins on his head there, just to break up that really vast space of what nothing's happening basically. And there you can see I'm just using the pimple. It's basically just a standard brush with an alpha, and just adding a few random ones here and there. And then after that, it's onto the texturing. So for the texturing, I started off with a kind of mustardy color as a base layer or a base coat, and then going from there I added some base coat colors to the horns, the eyes and the teeth and the tusks. And then from that, using the standard brush, basic standard brush, just going in there and adding some extra variations to the skin, so a little bit more red around the eyes, the nose, the lips, getting those hot and cold zones on the face, as well as the ears. And yeah, I don't tend to work too much when it comes to poly painting because I know that I'm going to be doing stuff inside of Photoshop that'll help as well. So I'm just trying to get as much information down as I need to make it make sense. Giving it some highlights here, some darker tones, so around the beard area is a cool zone, so it's a little bit cooler, so let's put some more grey in those areas. And then on the top of the head is more bony, so just put a little bit lighter skin there, color, to make it look like it's thin skin around the top of the skull there. And then using some masking techniques, I added some extra red in between the sort of wrinkles to give it a bit more life as well. And once that's done, it's onto the posing of this character, as well as then the rendering. And finally, I'm just doing the same techniques with the horns, the tusks and the teeth, using masking techniques to get those crevices and cracks and adding some extra color in there as well. The next step is to transpose master this character, and this is going to be really quick and easy because it's literally just rotating the head slightly, using transpose masters and masking tools, feathering them out, using the gizmo to rotate the head into the position of the concept. And once that's done, we then move into rendering inside of ZBrush, and that'll be the next stage. Again, don't have to spend too much time on this one because of the concept as well, but if you had a full body character, it's probably best that you spend a lot more time making sure it looks really good before you start taking it into the rendering stage. So I'm going to very quickly explain how the rendering stage is done in ZBrush. If you want, you can go and check out some free tutorials on YouTube, or you can buy some tutorials on my online stores, which explain this a lot further and a lot more in detail. Basically, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get a good light from using the light tool, and then rendering out some nice shadows and ambient occlusion. Once those are done, then I'll move on to actually picking some matte cap materials that will help me to composite the character inside of Photoshop and give me more control over the final image. So I just render out a multitude of different matte caps. Doesn't really matter how many you use. I tend to try and stay under 10 because then you're using too many after that. You could just do 1 or 2. Sometimes you don't have to do any really. But essentially what I'm trying to do is just kind of get as much matcap information that I can. And finally, just want to get some light sources rendered so that we have something to play with inside of Photoshop and add to our character. So just going around and adding some quick light sources. If you want, you can go and check out the free tutorial, all my online tutorials, to get more in-depth discussion about this. But we're going to move on to the Photoshop section next, where we'll start to composite our image. Hey guys, if you're interested in learning how to sculpt and composite characters, then visit my online stores for in-depth tutorials, models, brushes, and more. Just follow the links in the description box below. Also, if you enjoy this content, then please like, share, and subscribe for more videos in the future. Now, let's get back to the video. Okay, so inside of Photoshop, I'm just going to run through very quickly how I created the concept using the images from ZBrush. For this, I've got about 6 steps inside of Photoshop. So the first is compositing the matte caps. The second is adding the lighting. The third is adding shadows and ambient occlusion. And the fourth is making the background. And then the fifth one is extra details. So that's your hair or any other extra features like SS, which is subsurface scattering, or extra lighting or minor details, maybe adding some textures from online as well. And then the final one is the adjustment layers. So the adjustment layers is the final part of the image, and that kind of just is used to, enhance the final design. So as you can see, right now we're at the background stage. So I'm adding a background, adding some cloud cover or some sort of way to break up that part at the bottom where there wasn't a continuation of the body from the model. So I'm just trying to figure out a very interesting artistic type way to make that look more interesting and fit the image. And I'm just using the cloud brush to add some background clouds, adding some light source in the back, trying to make the image make sense, and as well as using the ambient occlusion to create a subsurface scattering map. Again, all of these techniques you can find on my free online tutorials, or you can find if you go to my ArtStation, Gumroad, ZBrush, and Flip Normals. You'll find some tutorials on there as well. You can buy and have a look at the same time. So what was really helpful when doing this image compositing was the fact that I had something to go off, so a reference to go off. Most of the time when I'm doing my sort of time-lapse videos or concepts, it's kind of just my own idea. But when I have something like this with actual concept to keep on track with, it's a lot more easier for me to actually make the image look really good. Because most of the hard work's done by the concept artist. I'm just doing a version of his concept using my own techniques and trying to be as precise to the original as possible. So in order to add some extra textures and details, I took some images from online and I just popped them on top of the character. This just is a very quick way of giving some more detail to your image that you might have missed inside of ZBrush, or you probably couldn't do inside of ZBrush. It's a kind of a cheat, but it works. So who am I to say anything about that? So coming up to the sort of near the end of this, we're just sort of tweaking. Also, I have to add some hair. I thought it'd be cool to add some little hair follicles, which were not in the concept, but I decided I'm just going to add them in anyway. It just gives that a little bit more realism to the character as well. It doesn't look so basic against the black background, against the white background. So yeah, just adding a little bit of extra flair to him as well. And then after that, it's adding the adjustment layers and grounding the character into the background, enhancing some areas, adding some more dark features, or adding some more lighter areas to the image, and then after that, it's pretty much done. Again, if you're interested in how to do these techniques inside of ZBrush and Photoshop, then I highly recommend that you go and look at the free tutorials online or buy them from my online store and really get stuck into it. I'd like to thank Christof Gorbelski for letting me use his concept, and if you can, please go check out his artwork and his Instagram and socials and see what he's up to. And if you want more of these sort of videos in the future, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. It's been an amazing 9th episode so far, hopefully going to hit that 12th one by the end of the year. And yeah, so as you can see, I'm just adding the final adjustment layers just to ground the image, and then after that we're done. And that has been episode 9 of Fan OCC. If you want, you can leave a comment below on how I did, or if you have any other comments about the process or ideas, then please let me know, and I'll see you in the next episode, episode 10, very soon. Take care.